Greetings and welcome. Let's get my greetings and welcome. My name is Jake Grayson. I'm a forest gardener and a forest garden designer, and I'm live streaming from outside today. It's kind of a beautiful day. It almost is a beautiful day. It is a beautiful day. We've had a lot of showers, so a lot of heavy showers yesterday, and you can see big clouds. And we're having the front of the house done. Finally getting it clad. I wanted to talk to you today about perennial vegetables. A bit of a rush this morning. I've just put in a peat-free petition. There's one for the UK, which is running for a couple more weeks, but I've just put one in for the Senedd, for the Welsh Parliament. And yeah, just organised that this morning, so all a bit busy. So thank you for people for supporting that. You can sign for it. You can sign it if you're a Welsh resident. And apparently, if you've had a bag of chips in Welshpool, that qualifies you as a Welsh resident. So without further ado, I just want to talk about. I've got quite a lot to talk about, funnily enough, about perennial vegetables, and I'm a bit of a funny stage. I'm not, I do a lot of. It's a different scale. The kind of thing that I've been working on for the past few years has been forest garden. Is creating a forest garden, and it's a slow process, and it's kind of getting there. But it's very different because we've got 8 acres here, and it's a lot of land to manage. So it's at a different kind of scale. I go off and do brush cutting for 5 hours at a time. So it's it's a very different kind of kettle of fish, working towards the same goal. So no matter the size of your garden, it's the same principles, but it's a kind of, the experience is very different, and it's a bit easy to get overwhelmed as well. And so a forest garden, this is actually nice. A perennial vegetables in a forest garden really are a kind of microcosm. So I think, this is like the size. This could be the size of somebody's garden, but it's the principles that are important. It's not how many trees you've got, or what vegetables do you have, or what. It's much more about the principles, and the principles of forest gardening is essentially creating an edible ecosystem. That's the most important thing. It can look formal, it can have straight lines, you can have hard standing in it, but it can also be an edible ecosystem. So what I've done here, this is not how I would have done it had I started from scratch, like everything in life, but it's all an experiment, and it's all a learning experience. This was originally an annual vegetable bed, 6 annual vegetable beds, and they had, I was growing potatoes and beans and onions, and I've had enough. I'm not cut out for annual vegetables. I haven't really got the time or the desire to do it. I'm not a vegetable grower by inclination. I enjoy it, but it's not, I don't want to spend all my time doing it. And the thing about annual vegetables, anybody who grows an annual vegetable will tell you that there is quite a bit of work involved. I've worked at a local market garden for about over summer, for about 3 months, like part-time work, and it was really, really hard work. And it was kind of relentless. It was hoeing and planting out, and watering and hoeing and watering and planting out and harvesting and hoeing, and it went on and on and on. And it's a commercial operation, so that's what's going to happen. Whereas you have the luxury, if you're growing for yourself, it's not absolutely essential that you grow everything for yourself. There's no need for self-sufficiency. So I wouldn't necessarily lay out the beds, and this could actually be like a microcosm for a small forest garden. And the beds are all kind of regular, because I thought that's how you did them. And I laid them out with sheet mulch, which I've only just got rid of. And I don't like sheet mulch. I must admit, I use tons of the stuff. You can see it kind of scattered around the place. It's plastic, and eventually it ends up in landfill. Eventually, no matter how often you reuse it, it ends up in landfill. Plastic pegs, plastic sheet mulch. So I just want to move away from using it. Much better. My approach now is to either use cardboard. I've got a stack of it here. To either use cardboard weighed down, or to get in to deturf by hand, which is hard work, I can tell you, or to get a mini digger in for the day and do a whole load. You could do about this area here, an acre. You can deturf the patches that you want in a day quite easily, and then I'll make mounds like the mounds I've created here from the concrete off the front of the house and turf. I'm going to creating, this is like a little mini windbreak. We'll have blackcurrant bushes along the top, and I'm going to do the same for other areas of the garden as well. So you're kind of creating windbreak mounds and shapes and features by the paths. So that's how I would do it from scratch, and the beds wouldn't necessarily be all kind of rectangular like this. You don't need to have raised beds. The only reason I've kept the only reason for keeping the bits at the end is to stop the bark from falling off the end. But even then, I don't know how necessary that is. And once it gets established, it doesn't make any difference, because once you get the ground cover in, then there won't be any bark anyway. So really, it is a process of transition, and I think it's like a lot of stuff. Shall I get my face back on here? It's like a great deal of things that it's all about the preparation. It's all about the infrastructure. The actual planting and the harvesting at the end of it is just like it's a process, and it's getting the right structure in place is all part of the process. There's a term for cooking called mise en place, which means, I don't know what the literal translation is actually. I guess something in place, but it means get all the vegetables chopped, ready, everything prepared, ready to cook. The actual cooking itself isn't much of the process. It's everything that leads up to it. And I used to build websites for a living, and it's the same thing with websites. It's all the groundwork, it's all the ideas, it's all the preparation that goes into it. And it's the same with a forest garden as well. So much of it's about preparing the soil, preparing the site, planning it out, designing it, thinking about it. And what I also would do is to say that you should work from centre. I haven't. I will insert. Hold on a second. I'm going to get my face back in here. I shall insert at some point. There'll be a screen comes up now, and it will say the order of things, how to do things. So the first stage is designing and planning. The second stage is to create the structure. That is the paths, the windbreaks. I'll just point those out for you in case you don't know what a path looks like. Paths, windbreaks, dead hedges, polytunnel. So this is the structural elements. Get them in, and that's across the whole of the site. You see, so dead hedges, canopy layer, and then keep grass down. If you've got grass, then keep it under managed, but don't come. Then the next stage is to go section by section, area by area, to work on those areas, to put in the shrubs and put in the ground cover. Yeah, so this, and then do it section by section. So first of all, design and plan, take your time over it, figure out where things can go. And then the second stage is to put the entire kind of the structure in parts, so the windbreaks and the canopy layer and polytunnels, ponds and the rest. And then work section by section, just doing the ground cover and doing the shrubs. So yeah, and that's the same kind of principles here. And what I would say is work from the centre. What this means is, this is the house. I'm sure you can tell. That's the house there, and there's a path that comes up to the polytunnel, and then I've got my propagation area next to the tap, and there's a compost just around the corner, and it's just, yeah, it's work from this point outwards. So that's the first section to do, and I didn't do it. I tried to do everything at the same time. Don't try and do everything at the same time, because it's hard. It's a kind of hard thing to do. So what we've got in terms of, hold on, yeah, work from the centre, yeah, and it does take time to do it, but kind of work on a section, finish a section off, and once it's finished off, then you won't get this. This is what happens if you leave it for 6 months. It's not that bad. It looks worse than it is. There's hedge wound work, grass, nettle, dock, what's it called? Bright geranium illuminatum or something. Dandelion, all sorts of really interesting plants in there. Goosefoot, but nothing I really want. Wood avens, foxglove, plantain. It's all going on, but it's not what I want. And what you actually really need to do, it's the same principles for a forest garden in the perennial veg. It doesn't actually make any difference. Is you want to clear the ground. So you've got the paths in, clear the ground. And then what I'm doing here, I'll put a bit of compost down to enrich the soil to get things going, but I won't be putting any more compost in. And then I've planted some Taiwanese raspberry, whose name I can't remember, but it is, oh, there's a bit of creeping buttercup there. So Taiwanese raspberry ground cover. And there's a bark mulch, and eventually it is a bit of a slow grower. Keep on top of it, but eventually it'll form a mat. And the alliums, we've got elephant garlic, I think, coming through here, and eventually the alliums can come through. It's a very low growing raspberry. The other beds I will use a mixture of Rubus nepalensis, Nepalese raspberry, because it's low growing, so things can grow through easily. And possibly thyme. Then there's also some other bits and pieces. I'm experimenting with Speedwell. I don't think this is Germander Speedwell. Don't think it is. Maybe it is. But there's some different native ground covers that I will experiment with as well. And just trying out different things. And yeah, so that's the kind of principle of I'm having wood chip piles and then a permanent living ground cover. And then for hungrier plants, so some plants will need a bit of helping out, I will have patches. I'm going to put comfrey, like big patches of comfrey that you can see. They're down here already by this Tuna sinensis, this Chinese cedar. Large patches of comfrey, and they are going to put those up by the weeded, when it is weeded, get rid of the grass, and I'll have patches of comfrey here, and then I can just use the comfrey as a chop and drop mulch on the beds here. Okay, so that's the kind of setup. So it really is kind of the same as like a forest garden. And then for layers, well, a couple of things. This is east, this direction, so you get south that way, and you get more warmer sunlight from this direction, from the west. So that's the kind of more valuable sunlight, as it were. So I'm going to put in a couple of posts, because it's so windy. You can see that's the prevailing wind direction straight up the valley. These posts will be set in concrete. I'll put concrete footings on them because they got blown over last year. And then I'll put some wire up and some string down, and I'll whatever I figure out. But I'll be growing some climbing plants here, and this is on the east side, so they don't block out the westerly light. Yep, so that's the idea. And then likewise here we've got a cornus hedge. This is cornus, probably Siberica. This is cuttings taken from what we've got here. Brachioglottis, Dunedin, sunshine, and then there's some sweet cicely and some meadow sweet in there as well. And the shrubs, what's great is I've just kind of freed up a load more space, and this is like some more beds. As you can see, I've extended the beds out. So I'm going to put in fruit bushes all the way down here, because it makes sense to. So I've got jostaberry, red currant, Jostaberry. What's that one? The black currant there. And yep, so I've got, it's fantastic. So this will be like fruit bushes all the way down here. And again, this is what it's so important, I think, to, like I was saying before, doing the separating out structures. So design and plan first of all, then do the canopy layer, the structural stuff, and then do the section by section. Because here, I was going to put the fruit bushes just on the other side of the hedge, but I don't think there's any point, because I'm going to have half a dozen. I'm going to have more fruit than I can eat just from this row of fruit bushes of Jostaberry and red currant and white currant. So yeah, yes, do think about doing the section by section first of all, so that you don't repeat the stuff. You put stuff where you really need it, and you only kind of find out where you really need it once you start planting out and using the space that you've got. So here, and these will go up to shrubs, like 1.5 metre high, and that won't block out the westerly light for the beds here. Okay, and then I did want to do a couple of making an accessible garden. When you're making the width of a bed, do remember like how far you can stretch. These are a bit wide. These are 1.7 meters wide, I think. Then you actually 1.5 meters wide. The width of this bed here, and actually that's too far for you to reach all the way. And I'm about 5'10", 5'11", and that's too far for me to reach all the way comfortably across. I'm always stepping on the bed. So if you're making a bed, make it 1.2 meters, no more than 1.2 meters wide, or have an access point. Create an access point in where you can actually then garden from the centre of it. So yeah, access is really important. And another thing about this access, I think, is important in terms of paths, but it's also important in terms of the knowledge that you're creating. So one of the things I really want to do is you want to make it as easy as possible. A lot of plants you just put in the ground, and I love plants that you put in the ground and they just grow. So Jerusalem artichoke, for example, these will just they just grow. So it's lazy gardening, that you want to get it to a stage where it looks after itself, that the ground cover means you won't have to weed. Once the ground cover is established, you won't have to weed. Once you've got the perennial plants established, you won't have to do, you just let them do their thing and come back year after year. Once the fruit bushes have grown and producing fruit, you don't have to, maybe a light bit of pruning, but nothing much really, tiny bit of weeding. But it's not this relentless cycle of planting and sowing and hoeing, and I think it's like with a forest garden. What you're trying to do with a forest garden is to keep you're maintaining the balance. You're shifting a balance. So you're shifting it from a very high turnover, disturbed soil, which is a habitat in its own right. But that's what you do with annual agriculture, is you're constantly churning it over and constantly keeping it in that state, and it takes a lot of energy to keep it at that state. Whereas what I'm experimenting with here and trying to do here is for perennial vegetables, is to keep it at a different level, a less interventionist level. So it's like the edge of woodland. That's the kind of point you want to keep it at. So there's less input, less effort involved in it, which is good. And the more accessible, hold on a second, lazy gardening. And it does remind me, I still do practice Tai Chi every now and again, and my Tai Chi teacher from many years ago said Tai Chi is like a really lazy martial art, because it takes a long time to get there, but you use the minimum of effort, and you always use just the minimum. You just kind of go with what is happening. And it's like with forest gardening, it's the same kind of thing. Forest gardening is like the Tai Chi of gardening. You want to do the minimum amount of work. You want to let the plants do the work for you. So whether that's the plants doing the work in terms of the fertility, so like planting comfrey, or the plants doing the work in terms of ground cover, or the plants doing the work in terms of the fruit or the crop that's coming, you let the plants do the work and you intervene as little as possible. Okay, so yes, let's move on to the vegetables. I was going to start off with the kale, and again, because this really is in transition. This is yeah, I had ideas about, oh, I'll plant things anywhere, and I can just harvest them wherever. And it's a bit of a, you're better off to start, as I said before, start closer to the house, and then get and kind of cultivate, as in not cultivate the soil, not as in a whatchamacallit, a cultivator, but get the land where you want it, nearer the house, get it to a decent state, and then gradually move out. I kind of went out that way and put in all sorts of plants that I really shouldn't have bothered with. I put Good King Henry out there, whereas actual fact I should have kind of stayed locally to the polytunnel and then worked on this area and worked on the other areas, and then gradually expand out. So kale wise, I planted a Asturian tree cabbage grown from seed, and it's yeah, it's a good plant. I'll let it go to, so I'm going to grow another one because they're actually really easy to grow. You shouldn't, apparently they're monocarpic, which means once they flower they die, but I've let this one flower because I'm going to grow it from seed again. They're quite easy to grow, very easy to grow from seed. And it has quite bitter tasting leaves, pale green. They're quite soft, but it's a nice plant. So that's Asturian tree cabbage. Behind it you can see a cardoon. There were 3 cardoons there. I've kind of divided one of them, and they are very easy going, lovely plant. And they get kind of bigger, grow to about 1.5 meters, 2 meters. They are a lovely plant. I've got bramble coming up here. So this is yeah, next on the list to be. So they are a beautiful plant, and you can eat the stems in the spring, early spring. You chop the stems, take off the tough ribs, and there's loads of different recipes as well. And they have a flower, they flower. They're a type of globe artichoke. They're, I think, pretty much the same species. So they're great, and they're kind of very ornamental plant as well. So here, yeah, this is a bit of a, oh, it's okay, it's not as bad as it looks. There's a bit of bramble in there and everything, but mostly ground ivy, Nepalese raspberry. Whoopsie. Oh, this was the path. Yeah. So woodchip paths. Oh, I've got a little handy hint for you as well. Crikey, the time is flying past. So I was talking to my mum, who's a gardener, last night, and she said, I was saying about the woodchip paths. Woodchip is expensive, so for this area it'll be about, I don't know, a big tipper load of woodchip, so it's quite a lot. So if you do have woodchip paths, like, oh, that's quite a lot of money each year. And my mum said, well, hoe it, you take a hoe to it to take the weeds out, and it'll loosen up the woodchip as well, and it'll make it last longer. And it's like, very good idea. And the adage is, hoe when you don't need to, then you won't need to hoe. There we go, isn't that lovely? So on with the plants. I have also got kale. So this is Portuguese kale, which I grew from seed. Again, I've let it go seed. I've got some more in pots. Much darker. Yeah, different flavour, not so bitter as the Asturian tree cabbage. And you can eat the flower buds as well. When they're like this, you can eat those. But I've left these for the bees. Bees absolutely love them. So I'll be planting more. Got more in pots to go out. So, and then there's Dorburton's kale and Taunton Dean, which I have in pots, which I will show you in a second. And then down here, it's kind of very exciting. The same kind of principle. I've got some. Make the paths up, get rid of grass, just get rid of grass. As you can see, I'm going to have grass is great, but it's high maintenance and you need to mow it, and then it will creep. As you can see, it just comes into beds. So I'm just getting rid of it where I can, having the minimum of grass. So here it will be a grass path, and then I'm no grass here at all, because it will just go straight into the bed. So this is all going to have a ground cover. There's ground ivy there at the moment. I'll put something else in too. And I've got a load of good King Henry, Chenopodium bonus henricus. I kid you not. And you can eat the flower, the young flower spikes. I won't eat any of this because I've just planted it out. It doesn't really like being moved. It's a deep rooted, closely related to quinoa and goosefoot. And then you can eat the leaves as a spinach substitute, and then you can eat the seeds as a quinoa substitute. Though I think that's quite fiddly. Oh, I meant to do. Oh yeah. That's a really good plant, and I've just planted. It self seeds like crazy. Once you get it, it goes mad and goes everywhere. So I planted a whole line of them down here, and that'll do me fine for good King Henry. I'll be absolutely fine. Oh, and that point. Sorry, I meant to say this at the beginning. Just so overly excited by everything. Oh, here comes the bins. Trashing the joint. So what I did want to say, I'm going to move away from the bins. What I did want to say was a big thank you to Alison Tyndale at Backyard Larder. Sorry, I meant to say this at the beginning. She's been really kind of helpful and supportive. She's got a shop, online shop at the backyardlarder.co.uk, and yeah, she's been great. So kind of get your plants from her, and also Mandy Barber from Incredible Vegetables down in Devon. She was on Gardener's World the other day. So I'll put a link to. I took a clip of the show so you can see it if you don't have iPlayer. And she's really good. Very kind of well done for going on national television and talking about perennial vegetables. So just wanted to say thank you to both those people, and Stephen Barstow, who edimentals.com, who has written a book around the world in 80 plants, and has a wealth of information on his website. And he's great because he cooks, he uses, like Alison, does a lot of kind of recipes and things as well. So it's a really good source of information. I'm not all that when it comes to cooking. So where was I? Oh yes, so I was going to go back to the to the other plants. I missed one out. Oh good lord, I can't believe it. It's time just gone so quickly. So what I wanted to show you very quickly here, there's another area. I don't know whether I should have brought these down. Oh, I don't know. I've got some Turkish Rocket. So this is my Turkish Rocket. I've just planted it, moved it and planted it this year, and that's Buneus orientalis. It's got strawberry ground cover, and yeah, that will. You can eat the flower shoots and you can eat the leaves cooked. They're better cooked. They're kind of quite spicy, like Rocket. The flower shoots are amazing. They taste like kind of like very rich purple sprouting broccoli. That's a snowbell tree, and quince. And I've got some Jerusalem artichoke at the top there. And I'm going to be planting this up and getting some more bark in here as well. So Turkish Rocket. And then I've got a load. All this grass needs to come up, and all these 2.5 beds need to be done. So there's quite a lot to do. It's kind of busy. And I wanted to show you very quickly as well, like in the fight against grass. Well, just keeping it in check. I put in some. This is a geranium. Not sure which one it is actually. I don't think it's macrorrhizum geranium. It's a non-native. There's buttercup in here and this geranium, and combined they should just provide. Put a row in here as well. They'll just keep the grass in check because they grow big mounds. The geranium, and it'll keep the grass in check, and I won't have to have bits of wood down to keep the grass back. So yep, chard. is always, there's a beetroot going over, but that's a Swiss chard. This really does need to have like a kind of rich soil. So like I've tried it in like a unamended soil and it kind of struggled very much. Okay, let's get on to the other one. So sea kale, crikey, where are you? So I've got some Turkish Rocket in pots. Oh yeah, loads of different alliums as well. Here we go, here's the sea kale down here. So that'll go into the beds. This is from Alison. And then I have, I think that's Taunton Dean, yeah. Oh, Dorperton's kale, I think, yeah, the colour of it, that's lovely. So that's another one, and not particularly happy one there. So I'll be putting those in. Then there's some very exciting, I've got to get these out in there as well. This is, oh yeah, this is a leek, Perennial Leek, again from Backyard Larder, Alison at Backyard Larder. St Victor crossed with, oh, I can't pronounce it, it's a French name, or I won't even attempt to pronounce it, Oerprei, I think. And these are kind of leek, you can see how they're growing. They grow in, they multiply like that, and you take out the biggest one and leave the smallest one in place. But they're more leaky than Babington's leek. This is Welsh onion, Allium fistulosum, and it's kind of like a chivy sort of replacement. They grow really well as well. They're really easy going. Some more Turkish Rocket. Some of it's not growing too well. And what I do have, let me see, there's a Skirret here, which is like a wild carrot, root vegetable, and that's kind of interesting. And then there's a new one for me, is Chinese artichoke, again from Alison at Backyard Larder, and yeah, kind of white tubers, so that'll be interesting. And then for the posts that I'm growing, I've got Caucasian spinach, Blitzia tamnoidis, something like that. And this grows in the shade as well. Climber, grows to about 3 metres over a summer, herbaceous perennial. So that's going up on the guides, up the posts that I put up. So Chinese artichoke, yeah. So that's that lot. And then Mashua. Now I'm not a big fan of Mashua. I tried it last year. It looks like nasturtium leaves. You can just see here. Grows like crazy later on. Beautiful little kind of tropical flowers related to the nasturtium, but I really don't like the flavour. I really don't like the flavour. Nobody did. I tried. And then the other one is Hopness, which hasn't come up yet in the bed. Well, the bed is absolutely ridden, but I do have some in. Oh, I've got some in. I won't show you because I've just planted them out. They're like they're bulbs, and they get to about tubers. They get to about that big, and it's a climber as well. So Mandy at Incredible Vegetables says best thing to do is to grow them in pots, as they're easier to harvest. Pots can be a bit tricky here just because of the slope, so I might this year just keep them in the bed and grow them up as support. And then finally, this is the thing. What happens is you then start to move on to other kind of what's the difference between a herb and a vegetable. All becomes a bit blurry, the lines between them. But then you've got apple mint, which I wouldn't put into a bed because it would kind of take over. It grows quite tall. And then you've got your hostas. So that's when I divided. Yeah, massive. These are lovely. These are beautiful. This is hosta Blue Angel, I think. And you eat the shoots when they first come out. I don't think we've got any. No, they've all started to leaf. Before the leafy shoots. And you cut them, and then you eat them in the spring, and then you let the plant grow again. But that's like you know, that's proper ornamental and an edible as well. Now it's so pretty. There we go. Okay, so I think I've covered everything, and yeah, it's not, you know, as I was saying, I feel very much like I'm still at the early stages of the forest garden in a lot of respects, despite the fact I've done a lot of work on a lot of different gardens and covered a lot of area. The actual stage where I'm at is still kind of that. It's just kind of getting to the things starting to come together. So I really would recommend you start next to work from centre, start next to the house. There we go. That's me all talked out. Thank you for watching. Bye.